I will do a second video that specifically addresses the drains that are in my body, how to take care of them, and that kind of thing. And that's not really even intended for friends and family. It's intended for people like me who are going to go into surgery. I found that there weren't people out there actually talking about it like it was regular business. There were people that showed their drains, but it was painful and it was right after surgery and they were revealing the drains, and I was scared to death about my drains and what that was going to mean. So I will do that video as well. That'll be a second post today, intended for really other mastectomy patients. But also, I mean, if you're curious and you want to be educated, there you go. Okay, YouTube. The second part of what I wanted to address today was specifically these drainage tubes on the side of my body. Now, when I first came out of surgery, I actually had 2 tubes on each side of my body. And right now, as you can see, I have just one on each side of my body, where really, if I was swelling, that swelling would make my breasts feel big and tense and full. And so you don't want that because it'll put excess pressure on the stitches and may actually cause the stitches to break. So instead, they give you these tubes, and the tubes lead down to a receptacle, and that receptacle catches the material from inside your body. So a couple of things that I wanted to point out about tubes is A, yes, they are uncomfortable. They don't hurt per se. I was really afraid of the tubes before I had my surgery because everyone kind of winced and it was weird and it looks weird. I mean, I look like a cyborg with these coming out of my body. But it's actually just really uncomfortable at that point where it touches your body. So I try really hard not to tug on them. That leads me to my little case here. I actually made this. Aniela has a post, and I will give you the link to that post, to how to make one of these pouches to tie into your body. And then if you just adjust the Velcro, you can tie it higher or lower, depending upon 2 things. 1, what you're wearing and what's comfortable, right? And whether or not you want it to show. And 2, in my case, how short the tube is. So I will give the link as to how to make one of these. This became uncomfortable for me, so I switched to something that a friend of mine suggested, which was a lanyard method. So the lanyard method is to actually take a lanyard. You're going to hook a carabiner. So as you can see here, I have a really small carabiner. And so it opens like this. Beep, beep. Okay. And then each of the tubes themselves has a bulb attached to the end of it. Now on the end of that tube, you can see here this sort of hand grenade looking thing and a number. This is receptacle number 2, if you will. But I stuck my finger through here, and that allows me to hook this onto my lanyard. And so now this is actually much more comfortable for me, and I can move around. Now I can do that with both, but in the case of this one, I found that this tube was extra long, and I didn't like them both bouncing around exactly with each other on my neck. So what I did is I took a piece of ribbon and I threaded it through there to adjust the length of this one so that it would be a tiny bit longer, since I had the room to do that. And I used the ribbon to create a loop. Ta-da! And then with that loop, I still, again, hooked it on my carabiner. And so this method is another method that you can use. What I like about this method is twofold. One, it's a little bit more freeing for my movement, particularly because my tube on this side was so short. In addition, I like this method because I can take a shower. I am still showering in my tub with a hand shower, so I'm not actually able to stand underneath a full shower. And then, so as I bend over, these just pull away from my body, and I'm able to wash my belly and get to the parts of my body that don't relate to what am I going to do with these tubes? How do I handle this process? So that's really kind of what I think they're called Jackson-Pratt drainage tubes are about. And now what I'd like to do is take a moment and kind of show you how I drain them. So hello again, YouTube. We are right now in my kitchen, and we are going to drain my tubes this morning so that all this bodily fluid that's trying to get out of my body can get out of my body. So what you'll need is a notebook where you've been keeping track of how much drainage is coming out of your body. I actually kept track of more than that. So as you can see on my sheet, I have date, time. My drainage tubes, what's left are drainage tubes 2 and 3. Pills, if I take pills. So they have me on pain medicine. I also have some ibuprofen, stuff like that. So I'm writing that down here. And then any notes about how I feel. My feet were swollen for a period of time. My left breast was extra sensitive for a while, and I didn't know why. Things like that. So I write that down over here. And then I also have some stickies that I've been keeping track of questions that I want to ask the doctor when I go see him again. Now, so I have that notebook, writing utensils, but I also have with me cups that they provide you at the hospital. So this first little cup looks like a little shot glass, but you can see it's been marked, and I wrote over top of it because this is how they actually come, and it's impossible to see. Look at it. And then once you get your bodily fluids in there, you really kind of don't want to try and hold it up to the light in a certain way. Can I measure? So instead, I marked it myself. And then they give you a larger cup for if you have even more drainage, which the first few days I actually did. So the first thing I do is I pick a drain that I'm going to drain first. And in this case, I'm going to drain number 3 because it's the longer one, and I don't know why, but it's the one I drain first usually. I did wash my hands before this started, so that matters. Please do that. Now what I do is, because there is so much in the line, I'm actually going to pull the material down through this line. This does make me feel a little queasy, but that's only because there's no pain involved. I feel the wiggle at this end of my body, and that feels a little weird. But otherwise, this tube is just a tube. And then right here, there's a little nibby. Boop, boop. So, and I'm going to pull that out. And when that happens, this becomes a little grenade full of material, right? So I take this, and I literally squeeze it into the bigger cup. And then, so that this still has suction, I'm going to squeeze it really tight and put the lid back on. And this is now done and empty and ready for next time. I'm not done yet because, of course, I have to empty my other drainage tube. So I'm going to clip this back on here because I definitely don't want it dangling because that feels crappy. And then I'm going to look and see how much we have here. Okay, so it's just under 30. So I actually would normally have this flat on the ground. I mean, on my countertop here. But because it's under 30, I'm going to go ahead and throw it in here because this measures up to 30. I don't know if you guys can see that. There you go. So I'm going to dump this in here so I can measure specifically how much under 30 is it. This is close to 18 cc's of gunk. That is plasma and blood cells and stuff. That is what makes your body swell. And that was drainage tube number 3. And it had 18 cc's. And then I dumped that into the big cup, and I'm going to set that aside. That is now my garbage cup. And I'm going to move on to tube number 2. Now in my case, tube number 2 is kind of short. So this one requires a little bit more gentle handling because it wiggles a lot. I am not going to do that pulley stretchy thing because I'm afraid to tug on the stitch, and that really doesn't feel comfortable. So I'm literally just going to pull again, pull the lid, Notice now, again, it's as big as a ball, like a little hand grenade. I'm going to get my little cup to measure and dump this in. I set that down because, again, I don't want to have this dangling. Squeeze it. Put the lid back in so that it creates suction again. I now have a flattened out grenade. And put it back on my carabiner so that it doesn't tug on my body. And I'm going to go with, it's about 23 cc's, so I'm going to write that down. Okay, there's my notebook. I've written down date, time, all right. I will likely take some pain pills here, but that's because I haven't taken any in a little while. And I'm feeling a little, I almost always feel a little crappy after I've been wiggling the tubes on the side of my body. It is more that there's a stitch hanging on my body, and that I am, when I wiggle the tube, it doesn't wiggle on the surface. It wiggles behind my breast. Wherever this tube goes inside my body to pull that body material, that part wiggles inside, and it just feels really terrible. Okay, but we're not done here. So I finished all the basic job is done. What happens next is I take both of these cups to the bathroom. I'm going to throw this away. This goes in the toilet. I throw it away. I rinse these out for the next time. And then I wash my hands again. That's when I'm actually done with taking care of my drainage tubes. So I hope this was helpful for those of you who are going to get a mastectomy and have to have this. Everyone that I've talked to has said this is the worst part of it, in terms of bodily pain and irritation. And I'm finding that to be true, but I haven't had a day yet where I haven't had them. So maybe on Tuesday when these come out of my body, I'll feel some massive sense of relief. But I can say that right now, this is the creepiest part of it. It feels really weird. My body doesn't like it. I have a weird adrenaline response. But it's not tremendously painful. It's more like an irritation. And making your body into a little science set is also kind of... it really makes it real that you just had a mastectomy and you're recuperating. You know, this is your new normal. Thankfully, this part of the normal, this little science set thing, that's not going to last very long. So now I'm dressed again. Not really, I have a robe on. But I've washed my hands, I've handled my cups and rinsed those out, thrown away the material, flushed it down the toilet. And I am about to make myself some lunch and proceed with the rest of my day. I will post this for you guys. That's part of what the rest of my day is today. And if you have comments, questions, concerns, feel free to put them in the comments below. I will answer as I can. Message me on Facebook, text me, whatever. For those of you about to go through this journey, this trek, this saga, it's going to be okay. This too shall pass, you know. I'm not who I was, you know, 8 days ago, 9 days ago. And that feels weird. But I am also not dramatically changed. I am the same woman, I am the same friend, I am the same person. But my body just feels a little lumpy, and right now I have to do some weird chemistry set type of stuff to keep track of my body so that I can recuperate and more quickly get back to a normal life. And a very close facsimile to that body that I had 8 days ago. Thanks so much for tuning in and for listening. I really hope this was helpful. And as usual, subscribe, and you'll be able to keep track as this goes on.